Welcome to TBA, I'm Brad.
I'm Caitlin.
And today we've got a pretty slight show, but a lot of interesting content, so stick around. What have we got?
Yes, Jake Cubert's coming back into the studio to talk about the podcasting program that he has coming up.
Yep, and up first we have the news of the week.
This is News of the Week. I'm Tanae. There were distressing scenes in Las Vegas on Sunday night at the Route 91 Harvest Festival as a gunman fired shots at a crowd of 22,000 from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Resort and Casino. The terrifying ordeal killed 58 people and left 527 injured, making it the deadliest mass shooting in modern US history. The shooter was identified as 64-year-old Stephen Paddock, who turned the gun on himself. The motive is still unclear. It was a busy weekend for sports fans around Australia, with the grand finals for both NRL and AFL being played out. In the NRL, the Melbourne Storm took out the premiership over North Queensland Cowboys with a final score of 34-6, and in the AFL, Richmond achieved an incredible 48-point victory over the Adelaide Crows. Katara's Blackout Reserve in Newcastle have been forced to cancel their reptile shows after their whole reptile collection was stolen overnight. A spotted and olive python and frilled neck lizards were among the stolen reptiles. Heartbreaking news for the music world after US rock musician Tom Petty died from a serious cardiac arrest at the age of 66. That's your news of the week. Back to the studio.
Absolutely sad to hear about Tom Petty. He's definitely will be missed. He was a fantastic artist.
Yes, and our thoughts are with everybody who was affected by the Las Vegas shooting.
Up next, we have Stuart, who went down and checked out the Big Ideas Festival. And, you know, if we're going to send an egghead down, it better be our best egghead. So check it out.
Hi, I'm Stuart Thompson. You might remember me from TBA segments such as Accurate Weather or University Kitchen. Well, ahead of tonight's Big Ideas Festival at the University of Wollongong, I'm asking students, what's your big idea?
I know it sounds really cliche, but I feel like in today's day and age and society and everything that's going on at the moment, really world peace and equality for all.
Idea is at the moment become a social worker.
Big idea to graduate and get a good job and find a good place to live, I guess.
So we're both interested in the issue of climate change and how it's affecting the world and how we can stop it.
Free ice cream on campus.
That the world should come together and collaborate with different countries a lot, and I hope that to happen with China, maybe Australia and China, and that could change a lot in the world.
More beers at Unibar.
Be nice to people. That's my big idea.
Gay marriage. Just to do the masters. Yeah, that's it. Beds in restaurants.
No, that sounds like it would be very convenient.
Yeah. You know, you have a good meal, you feel a bit tired, you want to have a lie down. That's my big idea.
I'm standing right out front of the University Hall where the Big Ideas Festival is about to start any minute. So let's go and check it out and see what the professionals have to say. So, where did you get your idea from?
Well, it's been a couple of years coming, really. I've been looking for technologies that can solve more than one problem at once, because we face so many problems in the human future. We need some technologies or approaches that can really do more than one thing at a time. Otherwise, we're going to face pollution problems, climate change problems, and population problems that we're not going to be able to deal with.
Well, I'm going to be speaking about the idea of living buildings. So that's the idea that we don't want buildings just to be sustainable. We actually want them to perform beyond that and have a restorative function. So they're actually, the buildings that we live and work in are of benefit to the environment, not just a burden.
I spoke to Vice-Chancellor Paul Wellings, who told me more about why the event is so important for the uni.
Well, it's a chance to showcase the work of leading professors, and so what we do is every other year ask a dozen or so people who've been promoted within the professorial ranks to talk about their work and to try and synthesise it in a way that students and the community and other academic colleagues can get a grip of what they're talking about without having to have an hour-long lecture.
The evening was jam-packed with live music, free drinks and plenty of networking. It's been a big and successful night here at the Big Ideas Festival. Tons of great speakers, all giving us some interesting insights into their research. Can't wait to be back here and see it again in 2 years' time.
Some great ideas there. Brad, do you have any big ideas?
I have one, and I thought about this the other day. I went and had hamburgers with my dad for his birthday. Happy birthday, Dad, for the other day. And I was eating my hamburger, and I was just astonished by how sloppily it was put together. And I was so angry. I wanted to do something about it. I was outraged, and I'm like, I need to do so. This is my contribution to the world. So I was like, I'm going to develop an app or like a website that, you know, you can rate hamburgers on taste, structure, you know, price, all that sort of stuff, and just get that data and just aggregate it down to the so that you have like a big archive of what is the best burger. So, you know what I mean? Like a burger index or something like that. Just I was so angry at how sloppy that burger was that I just couldn't even comprehend how mad I was. So that's my big idea.
Well, it's a very well thought out plan.
Absolutely.
Now we have Jake Cubitt back in the studio for all of your podcasting needs.
Jake, welcome. What have you got for us this week?
So today we're pulling from the must-listen podcasts in the society and culture genre, so dealing with topics and themes from everyday human life and the differences that make us individual. First on the list is something that's really interesting. It's called Death, Sex and Money, a combination of interviews with celebrities and normal people about topics of conversation that we tend to steer away from, that aren't considered generally polite. Anna Sales dives in with the first episode with the kleptomaniac's daily dilemma: should I steal it or should I not?
And I think we've got a clip there, so I think we'll just have a listen to that, and so we can get an idea of what that's about.
Absolutely.
Do you think it's okay to shoplift?
I think it's like a grayscale, sort of, you know, like where it's somewhere in the middle. I mean, I need to eat, and I don't have enough money to pay for all the food and our bills, so... But the other stuff, it's not really a need. It's just, maybe it's a little selfish. Like, I want it, so I take it.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Intriguing.
So is that hosted by one person in particular, or is it...
Anna Sales, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
From WMIC Studios.
Okay, yeah. And how frequently does that tend to come out?
Comes out every week. Okay. A few of the podcasts that we'll be talking about today are weekly, some are bi-monthly, some are bi-weekly. So the interesting trends that we're seeing in the growing field is that release dates are often regular, but at different intervals depending upon the production value of each show.
Yep, and obviously, like you said, tackling a heap of different content. How long do these shows go for, these episodes?
Typical runtime is half an hour, around 28 minutes, factoring in intros and outros. Some special episodes go for a full hour, and there's some bonus content every odd week for around 15 minutes. So a good, loyal subscriber will get a varied difference of content.
Cool. So what's up next?
Next, we've got The Flophouse. It's from the Maximum Fun Network in America. Hosts Elliot, Dan and Stuart get together every second month to review one of the worst films that's come out in recent times. So the film we listened to this week is the third installment in the XXX genre. A bit drunk, a bit funny. The guys talk about the reasons why the film was absolutely atrocious and some of the reasons that there were a bit of nuggets of gold in there.
Do you have a personal opinion? Do you think it was a good film?
I haven't caught it yet. It's good to see Vin Diesel back in the franchise. I know he took a vacation for number 2, but number 1 had a lot of success, so it's understandable they thought, let's bring him out for number 3.
Absolutely. And I mean, that's a particularly sort of popular genre of podcast, obviously, movie reviews and that sort of thing.
Yeah, critique, yeah. And you definitely see that branching out into the YouTube community as well, doing a lot of reacts, a lot of commentary on content that's already existing.
All right. Do we have a clip of that?
On this episode, we discuss XXX, the return of Xander Cage.
Live in Brooklyn!
So is that a live show? They said it was live in
Every
Brooklyn?
now and then they are live shows. One thing I like about the Max Fun Network is that they promote a lot of their podcasts recorded and live. So they'll have the Max Fun Con, where all the people who are part of their network meet once a year to talk with the listeners, and they also set up tours around the country, performing their shows live in front of audiences. It's really interesting stuff.
Yeah, it definitely sounds interesting. So what's number 3 on the list?
Number 3 is Under the Skin with Russell Brand, British comedian, actor, author and amateur philosopher. He tries to get beneath the surface of topics that are current and slightly taboo. The ideas that define us and the history that we are told, but not necessarily the history that is the truth. Philosophically poking at taboo topics of our time.
Sounds good. All right, let's have a listen.
Hello and welcome to Russell Brand Under the Skin, my new podcast in which I mean I, get under the skin of a variety of topics, human beings, issues of the day, and possibly I get under the skin of even you, the most devoted listener, coming here perhaps to learn something, to get a new perspective on the world.
So Russell Brand does a lot of YouTube videos. I've seen he had The Trues, which was quite good, quite a good YouTube series. Is this worth listening to, do you think?
It actually shocked me as to how interesting and engaging it was. I had a very incomplete image of Russell Brand in my mind as to who he was. I knew his comedy and his acting, but I didn't know how deep and thoughtful he could be on various topics. He actually was on a podcast, The Joe Rogan Experience, and that inspired him to start this podcast, where he gets on academics and really educated people on specific topics to speak authoritatively about things that we may necessarily not be educated about.
Yeah, well, I caught him on the Joe Rogan podcast, which was a really good episode, as well as I think Kevin Smith had him on Smodcast, which was also quite worth listening to. So what do we got coming up next?
Well, I have a question for you guys.
Yes.
Have you ever heard of Baba Yaga?
No.
Have you heard of the Boogeyman?
No.
Have you heard of the Salem witch trials?
Yes.
Okay. So the next podcast we're going to be talking about is called Lore, L-O-R-E. And it's an investigation into the mysteries surrounding unusual things in different cultures past. For example, the Salem witch trials, or Baba Yaga, who was Eastern European myth where she was a witch and she lived in a cauldron that had chicken feet. And if you called out her real name, she would vanish from you if she was trying to attack you in the forest. So it's a bi-weekly podcast, again about the dark historical tales of our true and modern superstitions, exploring mythical creatures, tragic events and unusual places.
That sounds incredible. Let's hear the clip.
There's a fine line between belief and obsession. From a distance, that line looks to be a mile wide. After all, no one expects to behave irrationally. But people throughout history have found that line all too easy to cross.
Definitely got a bit more of an ominous tone than some of the other podcasts.
Yeah, it's interesting to sort of delve into the untold stuff that we don't necessarily know the full truth about.
Absolutely. And we've got a very interesting one coming up next. This is...
Yeah, finishing off the list of 5 today is Ladies Who Lunch. Similar to Death, Sex and Money, but looking more through a feminine lens. It follows the popular YouTubers Ingrid Nielsen and Kat Valdez. Their listeners ask questions that necessarily have tricky answers, so sticky situations we might accidentally find ourselves in, whether it's sex or social phobias or life dilemmas. Kat and Ingrid approach each situation with compassion and humour.
All right, let's take a listen.
They'll say, like, oh, you've never been with a guy like me, like, I can change your mind. And I'm like, no, you can't.
Welcome back to Ladies Who Lunch. I'm Ingrid Nelson.
And I'm Kat Valdez.
Well, definitely worth checking out. If you're looking for some life advice, if you're, I'm sure they can be very helpful.
Yeah, advice podcasts are very popular these days.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for having me.
Now to the girls at Food for Thought.
Hey guys, welcome to the 14th episode of Food for Thought. This is a segment where we show you how to make cheap and nutritious foods. Yep, and today we're going to show you how to make vegan mac and cheese. So the ingredients that you will need are macaroni pasta. You want white potatoes and sweet potatoes boiled, and then we've got sea salt, tahini, pepper. You need lemon juice. We've got dairy-free cheese, oats, pine nuts, garlic powder, and onion powder. Okay, so the first thing you want to do is boil your potatoes. You want to chop them, dice them so that it takes quicker to cook and also it's easier to blend. And after you boil your potatoes, keep the water that you use to boil it because you're going to need it to put in the blender as well. And you also want to boil your pasta. And then what you want to do is you want to put all your ingredients into a blender with some of the water from your boiled potatoes and just blend it up to make a really cheesy sauce, and then just pour it on top of your cooked pasta and mix it, and you've got mac and cheese.
Guys, so this is our final product, our dairy-free mac and cheese with some sprinkled cheese on top. So let's try it and see what it tastes like. So excited.
Thanks for watching. We hope you liked today's recipe.
Join us next time where we show you how to make cheaper and even more nutritious foods.
It's great to have alternatives for a vegan diet.
Absolutely. I'm a big mac and cheese fan, and I'm not afraid to try things once, so I'll definitely give that vegan mac and cheese a go. I think that's all we have time for this week. So I've been Brad.
I'm Caitlin.
Have a good week.